everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for those of you who listen to us on a regular basis. And for those who are new to us, my name is Chou Hallegra. I'm the founder of Grace and Hope Consulting, where we empower people to achieve mental and emotional wellness, reach their full potential, and live fulfilling lives. And today I have my friend with me. She's been here before, so some of you might recognize her, but I'll give her a chance to introduce herself again for those of you who are new to her as well.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Sheree Casey. I am a resilience coach. I teach women to utilize resilience to recover from narcissistic relationships, not just romantic relationships, but relationships overall, because of the aftermath that it causes. I myself, was victim of narcissism, but we'll get into all of that later on. I am the author of several books, podcast host, as well as a speaker, as well as a facilitator, a business owner, and I also am a clubhouse moderator. So that's it. I can do it all, but I do what I can to add value to the lives of people, because people are hurting right now, and so many people were caught up in the myth of things, how things should be, but that's not what they really are. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And you do a lot. You're also a mom, and so, but all that
grandma.
So yeah, but all that you do it with a big heart because you care. Like, you're so committed to adding value. And so when you reach out, you're like, hey, Shu, can we do another one? I'm like, of course, of course. I love people, like myself, who have a big heart to serve others. So that's why we're here. So for those who are maybe new to the term narcissism, can you just define it? Like, what is narcissism, and what are maybe some red flags that we should look for? And this is not just men, because often when people hear that term,
right,
exhibiting these things, even women, we can be narcissists.
Right. Absolutely. It's so funny because I've met so many women who have experienced. I just got off the phone with a friend who was saying that her daughter, is narcissistic, and you don't really think about it, because one thing I can say is, when we enter into relationships with people, period, just so emphasized, romantic relationships are so emphasized of the right person, but we don't talk about the characteristics of the right person, right? We, oh, he looked good, he got to have money, this and that. But what about the depth of the person's soul? What about the character that lies within them? We don't hear about that. We just think that chemistry is all we need. You know what I'm saying? That chemistry. But when that chemistry don't work, and that narcissistic personality shows up, that's where the problem begins. And the red flags are there. Telling you that, showing you that they're better than you are. I'm better than you are. That's what the personality does. The definition says that it's a mental condition when people have an inflated sense of importance. I'm important. What I say goes, just like if somebody says, you think you put on, you buy a dress, a woman buys a dress. Think of a beautiful dress. She puts it on. It fits her curve. She feeling good. And all of a sudden, here come the narcissist. Where you wearing that dress to? You don't look good in that. Ain't nobody going to talk to you. They just immediately attack your sense of self-worth and self-esteem.
Mm.
And right away, that's a red flag. But most of the time, women cave into that, or even it could be anything from something that you're doing with your children, your cooking, your cleaning, all of those things can be a red flag. And from a personal moment, being transparent during my first marriage, there was some things about my husband that just totally made me feel bad.
Mm.
It was like I had to play, you had to walk on eggshells. And for a long time, I thought it was me, bad wife,
Mm-hmm.
the perfect example, the one that sticks out for me is after we had my son. And after you have your child, you have weight.
Mm-hmm.
You have weight. And we had went to a family event. I think the baby was maybe 2 weeks old. And his uncle said, you know how you look sometimes, you just throw, like you said, you throw something on. That's the baby's mother.
Mm.
And when he said that, my husband became, from that moment on, he became really, start gaslighting me, saying things like, oh, you're just too fat. Why are you so fat? And why don't you, just picking at my self-esteem. It's bad enough we already know that our bodies are out of control, have been out of control for 9 months. But then when somebody just starts attacking you and just chipping away at your self-worth and your self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
then by the time they get finished, here you are, a complete mess.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up. Kind of covering that. And some people, I just want to add to, some people can have those traits and not even realize it, right? And
Mhm.
from a clinical standpoint, I also just want to say that you know narcissism is actually a personality disorder. Can be.
Mhm.
But in
Mhm.
order to be diagnosed with that as a personality disorder, I'm just gonna read. There's like 9 things that what we call the DSM-5, like where we look at the
Mhm.
criteria for diagnosis,
Mhm.
tells us. So one, and it's not the things you already mentioned, but I just wanted to
Mhm.
kind of give an overall, maybe not quite as close as exhaustive list as we can, so people get a fuller picture. So one is lack of empathy. It's like people who don't have empathy, kind of, it's hard from them. Maybe they're, I don't want to say they cannot, but they're
Mhm.
unwilling to recognize or identify the feelings and needs of others. The
Mhm.
second, criteria here is that they have this grandiose sense of self-importance. So for them, their
Mhm.
achievement, their talents, their self-image is so important. They have to
Mhm.
protect that. They're superior,
Mhm.
than everybody else. And they have this kind of preoccupation with unlimited success. It's always like, getting more success, more power, more, like it's everything has to be more, more, more. Which
Mhm.
it's good to be, it's good to be aiming high, but if that's all that you focus on,
Mhm.
that's not healthy either. There's more to life than that. Another thing, another criteria for diagnosis is that they require this excessive admiration. Like, not only they see themselves as this grandiose sense of self, and they're always pursuing their success and brilliance and all of that, but
Mhm.
they want everybody to recognize that in them. Like, it's like, I need you to admire me for all the
Mhm.
things I've done, who I am,
That's right.
always put me on the pedestal, kind of thing. And the next one is that they believe that he or she is unique or special and can only be understood by or should associate with other people of special high standards, status. It's like,
Right.
all of the rest of the people down here, like, they, if you can't meet his or her level,
Right.
know, we can't mingle, right?
That's
And it
right.
can be in different level. It can be at work, it can be in the community, in our churches, and it's not all just
That's right.
like you mentioned. Another one is this sense of entitlement. They
Right.
have almost like on a unreasonable expectation, that they should be automatically be treated, a different way because again, they're all that. You have to admire them as being all that, and
Mm-hmm.
they're entitled to all that,
That's right.
And then now three more here. So this sum of seven here is that they are not always overtly, like you can't always see this in the beginning when you start interacting with them,
Mm-hmm.
but they have this exploitative like, personality, kind of, if you want, like they really take advantage of others, to achieve their own needs. So like because they're all that,
Yep.
they want to be grandiose, they want to, so they're going to make sure that as you are interacting with them, whether it's in a work relationship or romantic or even parenting or family, that they are exploit kind of trying to exploit the circumstance, the relationship to the point that it works for
Mm-hmm.
them. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always what you need because again, remember, they're not always willing to recognize your feelings and your needs, right? So it's all about them. So they make it work for them. If it doesn't work for them, then it's a problem. Um, and then they often show this very arrogance, big
Mm-hmm.
attitude, and the last one, they can be envious of others, but it's not always that you're gonna not gonna pinpoint it because they're portraying this big personality. They're all that, so you might not always,
Haters, haters.
yes, so you might not always pinpoint that doesn't look like envy, but it's their way of of masking,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
envy, and they believe that others are envious of them because again, they're all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a, if someone meets all these nine criteria, yes, they can qualify for a diagnosis, as a mental, as a personality disorder. But and it's also with everything, it's a continuum, right? There's some people who might be not some of those, some of those behaviors, some of those characteristics, but not fully have a diagnosis. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working on that. And then you can maybe as we're talking, even identify some of those things in
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And that's why we're here. We're here so we can
Mm-hmm.
help. We're not here to say, oh, you're a bad person. No, we all have things that we need to work on.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that. Well, that's the thing right there. You know what we say. Admitting is the first step,
Yes.
and that's where the problem is, right there. We and I totally agree with you. Admitting. So many people are still walking around, like even when the person does decide that they've had enough and they leave the relationship, it just goes on to the next person. There's no look at yourself like what was wrong with me.
Mhm.
Was there something wrong with, was did I, what did I contribute
Mhm.
to the messiness, you
Mhm.
know? And like you said, we got to look at ourselves and say, like, I've been divorced from my first husband for a long time. And I was writing in an anthology, and I said to myself, there, I never talked about this before, and I should have looked at this, you
Mhm.
know, and I was now looking at it, and I was like, we both played a big part in this situation.
Mhm.
So, but when it's gone beyond a certain control and a person is just totally gaslighted, just like if they're having an affair and they want you to think it's your imagination. It's your imagination that they're having this affair.
Mhm.
Oh, you're just stupid, you're just imagining things, and they're doing these things and trying to make the person think, and this is actual cases where this person was having an affair, And he was telling the woman, no, I'm not having no affair, and was having an affair, but was making her think that she was being overly, crazy and imagining this stuff when it was really happening. And that's gaslighting, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when she finds out about, by then her self-esteem is gotten so low because she thinks she's crazy. She going through phones, and that's where all that other crazy behavior comes. Then it just gets out of control. So that's kind of like the aftermath of what happens.
And so for those who are listening, maybe they're saying, "Oh my goodness, this sounds like someone dealing with, at home, at work, at school, in society and community in general." What are some tips that you want to give them?
Mm-hmm.
What can they do? One, to take care of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and because, like you said, we have to see ourselves first. We can't
Right.
control people. Like you said, you can pull
Right.
away, and then you pull away with all the emotional damage that this caused to you, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
work through that. And then the other person will continue to do that until they come to the realization that, oh, there's something I need to work on. Right. So first of all, I guess we'll start there. If I'm seeing this kind of stuff in my relationship with someone, how do I take care of myself first?
Okay. First, you need to really, as I said before, getting back to the characteristics. What is the character of this person? You get into the relationship, and they could be fine, romance and all of that. And then you decide to hang out with them a little longer, and and you discover, just like I know one of my clients was going to school, and what are you doing that for? You don't need I got a job. I've been working for 30 years. I mean, at this place, you don't need no school. What's but you want an education, but you're gonna listen to all that negativity, and it'll make you feel bad. Oh, you're never gonna do this, or you're never gonna do that. When they start throwing those things at you, and it starts to compromise, that's the biggest word. When you start compromising what your values, your beliefs, and your authenticity, that's when that's a red flag. So what you can do, the first thing you need to do is the self-examination, as you said. Examine yourself. Is this relationship, and this is for a romantic relationship, is this compromising my mental health? Is this compromising my self-worth, my mental health? And is it messing with me physically? Because it can. Is it causing me to be depressed and don't want to do the things that I ordinarily want to do? I'm just going to, because by that time, the old folks used to say, well, he ain't beating you, is he? You stay in the relationship. No. You examine it. You can approach it, have a conversation, of course, because, in conflict resolution, it is our first priority for everybody to come out in a win-win situation and talk about it and express yourself. Hey, I'm kind of uncomfortable with, the way you spoke to me, and with you always attacking my self-worth and self-esteem. Can we talk about that? Because you're very right. They might not be aware that they're doing this. They probably were raised in an environment like that, and it just carried over. Right? So after you do that, you need to, after you recover, so if, let's say, you've been in this relationship a while, and you sit down and you be like, boy, how did this happen? Well, you sit down after you do your inventory, you be like, okay, I was raised to believe, in a fairy tale that all I'm supposed to do is find a husband or find a wife, and everything's supposed to magically happen. No matter how bad they treat me, no matter how bad their attitude is, I'm supposed to remain in that situation. So what were these myths that I was told? Was I told by grandma, hey, you better stay with him? Or was I led to believe, one of the questions that one of the women asked me in my women's group was, so are you telling me you're a prisoner in your own house? Are you, and I got mad. I was like, what? So, have you been a prisoner in your own house? Have you been unable to express yourself and the things that you want to talk about or the thing that you want to be? And is this compromising my well-being? Because if you have children, if your well-being is compromised, guess what? There is the next stop is them. Because guess what? We know hurt people hurt people. And then the decisions that we make that impact our children will carry on and on and on. So there's a myth. We gotta look at the myth, the reality, the consequences. All of these things you have to examine once you realize that you're in that situation. You gotta finally look at the bottom line. What is it that you want out of this relationship? Because we have the power and the ability to manifest and create our own lives in the end.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that you share. Definitely, like watching, we sometimes miss abuse that's not physical, and for all purposes of what we're doing here and for your mental health, let's just call it what it is.
Absolutely.
A lot of the behaviors that people with narcissism exhibit are abusive to others.
Absolutely.
It's emotional abuse, it's psychological abuse. So let's call it for what it is. So it's
Absolutely.
not just because somebody's not hitting you, you have no scars on your arm, that
That's right.
it's okay to stay in an unhealthy, and it can even work. This is not for me. When I talk about relationship, I'm talking about relationship in general. No one should be
Right.
treating you in that way.
Right.
You
Right.
deserve respect. You deserve to be loved in a healthy way, and this is not healthy. The things we just
Right.
talked about is they're not healthy. So definitely make sure that you're safe, that your children, people you care about, are safe. Um, and I tell people at the end, it's whether or not you want to continue that relationship. But you want to
That's
make, if
right.
you're going to continue, make sure there's change. And don't stay in a relationship, don't stay in a partnership, don't stay in a collaboration waiting to see things change. You
Right.
pull aside, create some distance, and see the change, see evidence of change before you recommit to something or someone.
Right.
And because if you're in it, you will keep living in the same pattern. And those emotional wounds or hurt and leave deeper scars than any physical wound will ever do. So making sure that you're
Absolutely.
taking care of yourself. Yeah. And don't blame
Absolutely.
yourself. A lot of, and maybe, we can talk a little bit about that too. A lot of people who are a victim of this will like, how did I not see this? How, I'm too smart for this. Like, I feel like, I'm so stupid. How did I miss this? Like, don't call yourself names
Right.
like that. Don't be hard on
Right.
yourself. Because often people who exhibit those behaviors still like the slick people, like they just, and it's not like I say, so they might even realize that for themselves. It's just that they love to impress because they want to keep that grandiose personality that they have, right? So for them, like they seem like Mr. Right in the beginning, or they seem like the right, the coworker or boss, because they want to keep that persona, and that's how they see themselves, and that's what they're trying to portray out there. So like, in the beginning you might not pick up on that. It's after time you're like, oh, they did this, they did that. So like, look at the patterns, right? In any relationship, and when no, always look at the patterns because we all have bad days. We all, I can,
Mm-hmm.
all of us can say, oh, me one day I did act like I didn't even realize it. But if you did it once, it's not, it's different as someone who has this as a personality issue. It's like this is
Mm-hmm.
who they are at their core. This is, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to unwire that. It's a lot of work for them. But they have to be, again, one, acknowledge it, that they have this struggle and seek help for themselves. You cannot be your lover or your partner or your child or your co-worker's therapist and all the other roles that you have, with all the relationship you have
Mm-hmm.
with them. So you have to, take care of yourself by pulling away, take care of making sure that you're okay, and wishing them well, and and
Mm-hmm.
wanting their best, and even sharing resources with them
Mm-hmm.
if they're open to it. But they need to be
Mm-hmm.
willing to do that work for themselves. Right? They have to be willing to do that work for themselves. So let's talk a little bit about that guilt that comes with when you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I missed this,
Mm-hmm.
and so how do you help people? You will help. I know you work
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
women, and you can share some tips from your book as well.
Okay. So,
When people are, find themselves as victim and they're dealing with that shame
mm-hmm.
and guilt that comes afterwards. Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
some things that can help?
Well, one thing that I believe strongly in is self-admission. Yes, you did miss it. You did.
Mm-hmm.
You did. But look in the mirror, admit to yourself, yes, I missed it. I don't know how I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to cry all day that day, if you need to journal that day all day, or meditate on that all day, it's okay. Because the beauty is that no matter when you admitted it and realized it, you did realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So be grateful for realizing it at the moment you did. Have your moment.
Mm-hmm.
Have your moment. A lot of people say, well, I'm not going to have a pity party.
You need to
I
process
kind of,
that. Yeah.
you got to process it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to process. So if you have to cry no more than 2 days, okay. Me personally, I tried one day if I make a mistake. Why did I do that? Blah, 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 and then get up, let your feet meditate, pray, let your feet hit the floor and command your new day.
Mm-hmm.
Command your new day. Okay, yesterday gone, can't do nothing about it, but the future is tomorrow. I'm going to live in the present, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to internalize those things. I'm going to get help from a coach or a therapist to move to the next level,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm coming out of it, and I'm coming out of it better as a champion. Because as I tell my clients, recognition is the best gift you could give yourself. Because you know how many people, particularly narcissists, are walking around and can't identify it and don't even know they have it. The funny thing is, when I first heard about the narcissistic spirit, I was still married. I was like in maybe my second or third year of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And a minister, you know how you go to those married seminars,
Mm-hmm.
that the church, give. And this minister identified every trait that my husband had. And it hit it like almost knocked me down.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh my God. And he said very plainly, if you're living with someone who's like this, your marriage is not going to last.
Whew.
And I was like, I went to him afterwards and I said, you described my husband.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some people, the other thing about the narcissist, they don't want to admit, even when confronted, most of them don't want to admit, you know, confront them about it, and what are you talking about? You're crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right away they're on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult situation. So
Yeah.
you got to learn to protect yourself. To thine own self be true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, we don't learn all of that. We learn to put up with, that's just the way he is, or that's the way she. No, no, no. That's that time out for that. I don't accept anybody's bad behavior towards me. A
Right.
boss, or or a friend. Nobody talks to me like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody's gonna mistreat me. That's rule number one. It's not that you're putting up a guard, but you're setting boundaries, healthy
Yes.
boundaries.
Right, right. And I get
You
excited
know.
because especially in our faith communities and women also in general, like I've seen this a lot with women, it's like we assume that, setting boundary is a bad thing. If I set boundary, that means I don't love the
Mm-mm,
person, I don't like the person. No, setting boundaries is that one, you respect yourself, you know what you would tolerate, and you care enough about the person that you want a healthy relationship with them. That's what boundaries are.
mm-hmm.
Like
That's right.
you have to set those boundaries. No matter who it is, you have to set those boundaries. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And so, can you talk to us about your book? We're going to wrap up here. I'm sure we can definitely
Okay.
talk about this subject, for hours,
Okay.
But
Yes,
I
we
want I
can.
want people, for all of you listening and watching and wanting more. So she actually has a book that can help you with all the stuff we
Mm-hmm.
talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So just tell us a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about the book and then where people can find it.
Mm-hmm. So my book is called When Happily Ever After Doesn't Happen, Picking Up the Pieces of Your Life After Life's Disappointments. And the focus is on, those fairy tale relationships that we thought when we married this man or this woman, or we were in this relationship, that our lives would be perfect and we would just live in euphoria and like a princess. But
Mm,
then you found out that this wasn't the case. There is in the Bible Abigail, who was married to Nabal,
mm,
who became the wife of David later on. um, Abigail was a beautiful woman, beautiful spirit, serving spirit, and she married Nabal probably during that time, for status, you know, and he treated her terribly, terribly. And
mm,
she was living in that situation with that kind spirit. And most of the people that are married to people like this, or in a relationship to people like this, are very kind. And, like the Bible say, don't cast your pearls before swine. you know
mm,
Try to get to know people, you know before you get entangled with them. I don't want to use the
mm,
word entangled. That's
mm.
I
That's a
know
whole
that was
different form, but I
that
see
was
where you're coming from.
a big word this year. But before you get involved with them, try to see what their real personality is, because if they're like this before you marry them or hook up with them, guess what? They ain't changing unless you come up with a solution. But my book gives you tips. I go into depth about the myth.
Mm,
The myth. We thought that everything would be perfect and that love would conquer all. Now, in the end, love does conquer all, but it takes work.
let I just want to interject a little for a couple minutes here, and then you can take it back.
Go
Finish
ahead.
your thought. Love, yes, love covers all, but it's also loving yourself enough that you cover yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you can only give what you got, right? Even the Bible tells us to love others as we love ourselves. If you don't love yourself enough, you have not enough or healthy love
Mm-hmm.
to give to others. Love covers all, but still covering yourself by setting boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, go. I'll stop
Because
there.
You got it, girl. You're absolutely right, because it needs to be emphasized. I don't think it's emphasized enough. You know, and it's funny because growing up, my dad used to say, love don't pay no bills. And I'm like, why do he keep saying that? That just gets on my nerve. Yeah. And then, I'm 40 years old. Bam, that hits me right in the face. Love don't pay no bills. People do, right?
And all kind of bills, not just the financial one, the
That's
emotional
right.
one, the spiritual one. Because
That's
if you
right.
want to be in the relationship with someone, to make sure that you are, that you're covered at all levels, right? To be in a healthy relationship is making sure that all fronts are covered, right? What are those needs are not being met?
Absolutely.
What are those things that you're missing, in
Right.
that relationship? So yeah.
Right. And then I talk about the reality. What is your reality? What is your reality? What's going to be your next move? Yeah. You may be in a situation where you are financially bound to this person. Sit down and write everything down that you have to write down. And then, I have journal pages in the back, and, where you can put down, what are the consequences for me if I stay in this relationship? How is it going to benefit me? How will it benefit me? Yeah. Or will it not benefit me? And the other thing, that dealing with the guilt, like we said, don't beat yourself up. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us, and don't let your circumstances crush your spirit. You might not have any money to get out of your situation, but as long as your mind is working, as long as you're thinking, there's a solution for every problem. And, from that point on, once you recognize everything, your choices determine your destiny. What you're choosing will determine what move you choose to make, will determine your destiny. And then you have to build up that courage to walk through the door. I'm not going to say out the door, because that might not be your reality, but courage to walk through the door to the next level of your life, to your destiny. You gotta find that courage from somewhere. It may be in your kids, it may be from your girlfriends, it may be your faith. Whatever it is, you gotta find that courage. And then, map out your steps. And that's an ongoing process. Mapping out your steps. Ongoing. Because one thing you might put down, you got to have the plan A to plan B. Sometimes C. So sometimes those are the things, right? And a D, right? So sometimes, I'm going to give you the link is going to be to buy the book is going to be on there also. Yeah. So that you guys can, and if you like a free discovery call, I'll put that information in there as well. Because I do have a few coaching programs specifically for resilience, and we can go from there. I'm on IG, I'm on Clubhouse, I'm on Facebook as well. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to do so.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I know this is a very important conversation here. So for all of you listening, we'll share her links and how to reach out to her. And please take care of yourself. We do all of the things that we do, both she and I, because we care about you, and we want you to have a healthy and a better life. So from all of us, much love, and please make your wellness a priority.
Absolutely. Be well. And you can do this.
Yes, you can. With the right support. So reach out for help when you need it. You can do it. All right.